Okay, you guys should be able to hear me now. I was having a full conversation, but did not have the microphone in my hand. This actually helps out a lot. Um, but welcome to God in Law. I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's going to be a discussion we do every now and again or a podcast. We may do some interviews. I'm just doing my best to be obedient to what the Lord has given me thus far. And if you're anything like me, He does not always give me this total picture. He will give me bit by bit. So we're going to start with what we have. I'm going to start with prayer. I really hope that you guys can hear me. I'm using a new microphone, which I did test out. But I'm also using a new streaming service. So if I talk for 30 minutes to an hour and you can't hear me, I'm going to be really upset. Let me see if I can text somebody. Okay. Okay, because I will be very upset by that. But we'll go ahead and pray, and then I will start speaking about what I believe the Lord wants me to share. So, in Jesus' name, I pray. God, I thank you for waking me up today. God, I thank you for keeping my family safe. Lord, I thank you for blessing us with safe travels. God, I repent for my sins, both known and unknown. I ask that you continue to search my heart and point out those things that's not like you. God, I invite you into this space. Holy Spirit, increase so that my flesh can decrease. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen. Okay, so um, we're talking about the TD Jakes lawsuit today, and some people shared with me that they did not know that TD Jakes that there was a lawsuit, and so we're going to talk about it. And okay, it looks like this live is not showing up on my Facebook page, so give me a second. Okay, it is showing up. Okay, it might just be a delay. Okay, so some people did not know that there was a lawsuit involving TD Jakes, but there is in fact a lawsuit. So my plan is to kind of go through it. I'm gonna share the actual complaint, and we'll kind of read through it and go through it and talk about it. Um, just as a preface, I love TD Jakes. There was a season in my life where it was me, the Lord, and TD Jakes. Like that was it. Um, I used to listen to all his messages, take notes, watch him again, listen to him again. I think I had some CDs of his audios that he used to sell. They probably don't sell them anymore. Books, maybe one book. Um, but he really helped me through a difficult season. So I just want to start with that. I'm not sharing this from a salacious place. I'm really sharing it because I believe the Lord wants me to. And the Lord is doing something in this season with justice and exposing injustices and really giving a voice to those who have been silenced over the years. And so, you know, we're gonna read through the complaint. Of course, these are allegations at this point. Um, so I'm gonna be saying allegedly, but I believe the Lord wants us to discuss it. And what I want to do is share my legal opinion, also share, a biblical perspective at the same time. So with that, let me pull up the complaint. Give me 1 second. Okay. So this is the actual complaint. And let me go back. So millions of people, I'm sure by now, has seen the interview that Mr. Youngblood did on Larry Reed Live. This was back in, I want to say, October of 2024, October, November 2024. Mr. Youngblood, which is a man who said that he was groomed by Bishop Jakes, he went on Larry Reed Larry Reid Live, and he made certain allegations involving sexual misconduct about Bishop Jakes. And that's kind of where it dropped off. Like, he did the live, he made his allegations, he stated that there was going to be some litigation, but we didn't hear anything else until TD Jakes actually responded with filing his own lawsuit against Mr. Youngblood. So that's actually what this is. So I'm going to scroll up so you can see it. It is Dexter Jakes versus Dwayne Youngblood and Doe's 1 through 10. So when we see Doe's in a complaint as a defendant, that means that the plaintiff is unsure of the name of the parties who are further involved. So they just put Doe as a placeholder. And so basically, Bishop Jakes is saying, I know Dwayne Youngblood is responsible, but there's at least 1 up to 10 other individuals who are involved in the allegations that he's presenting in this complaint. And I'm going to go up a little bit further. This is in federal court. It's in the Western District of Pennsylvania, which is where I think Bishop Jakes still lives in Pennsylvania. And this is the allegations that Youngblood made against him, I believe, happened in Pennsylvania as well. But we'll go through it. So, nature of the action. This is a lawsuit in the tort of defamation and civil conspiracy to commit defamation. So what that means is Bishop Jakes is saying that, hey, Dwayne Youngblood, he went on Larry Reid Live, he lied, he made false allegations against me, and he defamed me when he made those allegations. So that's one claim, is that Mr. Youngblood defamed Bishop Jakes. And another claim is that there's this conspiracy to commit further defamation. And that's where the Does come in. So when you have more than one party and you're saying they're all involved in a certain allegation or a certain crime, that is a conspiracy. And so we have 2 different claims here. So I'm not going to read it line by line, but basically, he starts off, when I say he, Bishop Jakes, but we know his attorney wrote it right. But he starts off by just giving some background, an overview. He's basically saying, hey, this man went on this talk show. He made allegations against me. They were lies. And now I am suffering extreme emotional and physical distress because of Mr. Youngblood's allegations. And so that's how he starts. And so before he really gets into the claims, he goes into the parties. And that's a typical way to start a complaint. You don't always have a background like what this attorney has, but you go into the parties, you kind of say who everybody is. So Bishop Jakes, we know who he is. He defines himself as a world-renowned spiritual leader, global philanthropist, author, film and music producer, and the founder of the Potter's House Church in Dallas, Texas. Okay, he's a U.S. citizen and resident of Dallas, Texas. So it must be Dwayne lives in Pennsylvania. That's what it is. That's right. Bishop Jakes used to be in West Virginia, not Pennsylvania. Okay. So the defendant, Mr. Youngblood, is a registered sex offender in the state of Pennsylvania and a 2-time convicted felon related to sexual abuse of children. He is a U.S. citizen and a resident of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And so we'll kind of get into this a little bit later, but the complaint really highlights the background of Mr. Youngblood and really talks a lot about what he's been charged with in the past, what his criminal history is. And that stood out to me because in a defamation claim, you're basically saying this person made false allegations about me, and as a result, my reputation has suffered, my brand has suffered. I lost book deals and endorsements. I lost money because of these allegations. I lost sleep. I lost, there was a physical incident that Bishop Jakes had. So those are the things that you really want to highlight And those are things that you have to prove. Defamation is not just somebody spoke and said lies about me, right? We all might have a defamation case in that case, right? But the plaintiff has to show that there were actual damages. And that's why defamation is hard to prove. It's sometimes easy to prove that someone lied, but to prove that you have damages, substantial damages as a result of those lies, is a totally different thing. And so think about like with Cardi B when she sued, I think her name is Tasha K. That was for defamation. Tasha K was saying she had some STD. Well, millions of people know Cardi B. And so, yes, that really harmed her reputation. Same thing with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Amber Heard wrote this long article and accused Johnny Depp of being an abuser. Well, millions of people know him. They've seen his movies. He had other movies coming up, prospects coming up that perhaps would have been impacted by her allegations. I think that was like the height of the Me Too movement, and so, or the start of the Me Too movement. So it was a huge deal, and so he had substantial damages. So I'm not saying that everyday people cannot prove defamation, but it is difficult for everyday people to really prove that they have those damages to that level. However, for a person like TD Jakes, it's not hard. It wouldn't be hard to prove that he suffered financially, that his reputation, his brand suffered. And so when I see a focus on denigrating the person who made the allegations, that's a red flag for me. Like, your focus is on what this person did and how horrible this person is, instead of your focus being on this is how I was hurt by these false allegations. So we'll stick a pin in that, but that just stood out to me. But he comes right out the gate saying that Mr. Youngblood is a registered sex offender and a two-time convicted felon. That's how he describes him. I think Mr. Youngblood is also a pastor or a former pastor. There's a lot of words he could have used to describe Mr. Youngblood, but this is what he chose. And you can see the juxtaposition between how he described himself, Bishop Jakes, and then how he described Mr. Youngblood. Okay. Paragraph 6, on information and belief, plaintiff alleges that defendant Does 1 through 10 inclusive are other parties not yet identified who have acted in concert in agreement with Youngblood in order to commit defamatory conduct against plaintiff and have committed acts in furtherance of such wrongdoing. So, um, again, he's saying there's other people involved in this conspiracy, but I don't know their names right now. Now, I will say, as I read through the complaint and I read through the allegations, I wondered whether they were going to name Larry Reed as as one of the John Does, but they have not yet. To my knowledge, they haven't yet. But just some of the allegations seemed like they were talking about him. Okay, so jurisdiction, that's basically letting the court know you can exercise your power over this matter because of this. And so the federal court has jurisdiction because of the diversity statute, which says that if there's diversity among the parties and the controversy is over 75,000, then the federal court can exercise jurisdiction over the case. So typically, excuse me, I'm getting a call. Typically, defamation would be just a state law case or something in state court. But because there's diversity in the citizen, excuse me, because there's diversity in between the plaintiff and the defendant, meaning they are residents of different states, and because Bishop Jakes is seeking damages over $75,000, then this case can be in federal court. And federal court is known to be it's it's a little, I don't want to use the word fancy. I think fancy is not really the best word, but that's just the best word I can think of right now. But it's more fancy than the state court, and the judges, they go through like more vigorous, it seems like anyway, that they go through more vigorous like training. They're appointed by the president, so it's just kind of like a higher level of prestige when you have something in the federal court. So I think as an attorney, if we have a chance to argue something in federal court, we're going to choose federal over state court, unless there's some type of federal president that we're trying to avoid or something like that. And I will say, the federal court also tends to be more lenient in terms of not wanting people to come in person all the time, like state court does. Excuse me, guys. My babies gave me something, and I'm trying to. First, I just thought it was allergies, and now I keep coughing, so I'm like, maybe it's something else. Um, but anyway, let's get into the allegations. Bishop T.D. Jakes becomes one of the most prominent and respected pastors in the United States and establishes one of the largest churches in the United States, the Potter's House of Dallas. And so, this is more background into Bishop Jakes. He's authored 30 books, best-selling author. His congregation has an outreach exceeding 80,000 people. He's a motivational speaker. It talks about how he gave a sermon at the St. John's Episcopal Church, which is known as the Church of the Presidents. It talks about his humble roots as a pastor. He had a 10-member storefront at a church in West Virginia in the early 1980s. And in 1996, he founded the Potter's House, and it has 30,000 members. So he went from 10 members to 30,000 members, which is pretty incredible. Okay, some more things about him: CNN, Time Magazine. He's been okay. We're gonna try it again. Y'all know I was talking fine all day, and then I get on here and I'm coughing. Okay. Talks more about his image. He's been married over 35 years. He's a loving husband, father, and grandfather with more than 40 years in ministry. Okay. Now it gets into Mr. Youngblood's background. Defendant Dwayne Youngblood is convicted on multiple occasions for sex offenses involving minors, which that sounds pretty egregious, right? And it is egregious if it's true. And we're going to speak as if it's true because he pled guilty. Mr. Youngblood pled guilty to these things, so we can speak about it as if it is true. I will say that when I watched the live that Mr. Youngblood did with Larry Reed live, he was candid about his background. He mentioned that he had been convicted of offenses involving minors, sexual misconduct with minors. So I will say that, that's not something that's a secret. But this complaint does allege that he was not a, when we have things that we're ashamed of. I don't think we're going to go into great detail about them. I mean, if we're sharing our testimony and we're like, the Lord took me from being, a twice convicted felon to, now I'm a pastor. But are you really going to go into detail about allegations, especially when they involve children? Most people don't want to hear about that. You just keep it very cursory and you move on. Um, And so the complaint, makes it seem like, when I say complaint, I'm talking about this lawsuit, makes it seem like he was trying to hide something. But when I listened to him speak, it didn't seem to me that he was trying to hide anything. He admitted that he had a record, but it's just not something that people want to hear about. It's disgusting. So you talk about it and you move on. So I will just say that, but we'll keep going. The complaint, and I'm not going to read through it because it is disgusting, but the complaint goes into detail about the charges he faced, a 15-year-old boy, and all these different things. That has nothing to do with whether this man committed defamation against Mr. Jakes, Bishop Jakes. And so, in my opinion, this attorney is doing his best to paint Mr. Youngblood in the worst possible light, as this disgusting person, um, juxtaposed to Bishop Jakes, who has all these accolades in Time Magazine and on CNN and all these other things. And so when you put those two together, it's like dark and light, right? Allegedly. But we know that things are sometimes not what they appear. So this is, on the surface, these things are true. But that does not mean that Mr. Youngblood did not commit defamation. I mean, that doesn't mean that Mr. Youngblood committed defamation. It doesn't mean that he was not telling the truth when he shared what happened to him. It means that he has a terrible criminal history. And I think we all can agree to that. So again, he's still talking about his convictions for a long time, up until paragraph 19. Paragraph 20, he gets into the actual statements that Mr. Youngblood made. And so we'll read some of them. On October 28th, 2024, Youngblood sat for an over 2 hour long interview on Larry Reed Live, an online video podcast hosted by Larry Reed that boasts of having over 150,000 subscribers on YouTube alone. So that's a big deal. So if you go on a channel and there's over 150,000 subscribers on that channel and you say something, you got to know. I mean, you could say, go buy string beans. I bet you string beans is going to be sold out at Publix. You know what I mean? Because so many people have heard it. And so the fact that Larry Reed has 150,000 subscribers, thousands, millions of people heard about these allegations within a matter of days. I didn't even watch Larry Reed, and it came across my timeline. Like, I think I was familiar with him, but he wasn't on my timeline, and next thing you know, he is all over my timeline. So millions of people saw this for sure. So that's not a good thing for Mr. Youngblood if he is lying. Okay, the October 28th episode of LRL was broadcast live to tens of thousands of online viewers on the Larry Reed Live YouTube and Facebook accounts. The episode was titled Larry Reed Live Interviews Dwayne Youngblood, The Abused Become the Abuser. And again, like I said earlier, Mr. Youngblood talked about his criminal history, and he talked about, how he was groomed. Allegedly, he was allegedly groomed and abused and misused in church, and he then used that experience to inflict that harm on other young boys. That's basically what he said. Okay. Um, Paragraph 21 is talking about, basically saying that he wasn't forthcoming about the circumstances of his convictions and incarcerations. We already talked about that. I think he said what he needed to say in that moment. When you have something involving children, it's just, we don't want to hear the details. And so I don't want to read through the details, but it's here if you would like to read it. Okay, the interview later turned to Youngblood's new claim about how the source of his becoming an abuser was his own abuse at the hands of pastors and religious figures he encountered in his youth. After detailing instances of his own father sexually abusing his sister and of his abuse at the hands of other church leaders, Youngblood turned his ire on Bishop Jakes. From the moment Youngblood brought up his allegations about Bishop Jakes, roughly an hour into the interview, he and Mr. Reed spent almost the entirety of the rest of the interview on Bishop Jakes and Youngblood's claim that Bishop Jakes tried to groom and sexually abuse him. Youngblood's story about Bishop Jakes on October 28th episode of LRL was that the now 58-year-old Youngblood was 18 or 19 years of age. When he was 18 or 19 years of age, Bishop Jakes, after talking to Youngblood for 2 hours at the home of an elder clergywoman, this is just a super run-on sentence, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. But basically, what Youngblood was saying was that um, Bishop Jakes was in town. He will always stay at the home of this particular older lady. She liked to host him, and so Mr. Youngblood went to meet with him, talked to him for several hours, and then when he got up to leave, when Youngblood got up to leave, he said that Bishop Jakes pressed himself into him and like in a sexual manner. That's basically the allegations that he made, and you can read through it. Um, and so the attorney is talking about the allegations. Youngblood then went on to describe how he did not tell his mother what happened, but that she still made him go to church service that night. And so yes, he did say that. He said he didn't tell his mother what happened. He was shocked. He said, I died in that moment. He even used that language. Um, and he said that his mother was like, in our house, we go to church. So get up and get dressed. And so he went to church with his mom that night. And he said that Bishop Jakes made him read in front of the congregation, read whatever the the Bible verse was for that day, or the Bible passage. So I'm gonna stick a pin here. So parents, if we have children that normally want to go to church and they say, no, I don't want to go today. They wanted to go early and they're like, no, I don't want to go today. Let's delve into that because it's not always as simple as, you're in my house, you're going to church. We serve the Lord. As for me and my house, the Christians, what we like to say, as for me and my house, we serve the Lord. And we do. However, if you notice a change in your child, that's something to kind of delve into and be like, okay, well, why don't you want to go? You usually go. You were excited to see Bishop Jakes yesterday or last night, and now you're saying you don't want to go. What happened? And so I think, not blaming his mother, but I just wanted to highlight that. And I will say, I think in our generation, the millennial generation, I know we get a bad flack for um, soft, gentle parenting, whatever it's called. But I think we were dismissed so much as children that we don't want to give our children that same experience. And so, you know, I'm not saying his mother was dismissive. I wasn't there, but I just wanted to make that point. Um, this next paragraph gets into Youngblood kind of describing Bishop Jake's motivation for approaching him in that manner. I did not find this motivation to be, it doesn't make sense to me. So I will read it. According to Youngblood, hold on, let me go up. Later on in the October 28th LRL episode, Youngblood described an encounter with Bishop Jakes where years later he had to drive Bishop Jakes and his wife to a hotel after a conference. According to Youngblood, he accompanied Bishop Jakes and his wife back to the hotel room, and after Mrs. Jakes went to sleep, Youngblood confronted Bishop Jakes and asked him, "Why did you do what you did?" To which Bishop Jakes responded, "My stock was rising, and I would have had sex with anybody at that time." So I don't know what your stock rising has to do with having sex with anybody. Um, so that reasoning does not makes sense to me. If your stock was rising and you could have had sex with anybody, why would you choose this 18 or 19-year-old boy? And what does that have to do with your stock rising? So if you were already established and you're like, oh, I'm a powerful man, I sleep with who I want, I think I would better understand that. But to say your stock was rising, meaning you're on the rise, why would that then motivate you to have sex with anybody? That doesn't really make sense to me. Maybe it makes sense to you guys. Let me know in the comments. But that wasn't clear to me. Okay. Then it says less than a week later, on November 3rd, 2024, Youngblood returned to LRL for a part two. The abused became the abuser. In part two, Youngblood doubled down on the same false story, and this time he made sure that all of the LRL viewers knew that he was not just accusing Bishop Jakes of trying to begin a sexual relationship with him, but rather that his story was one of sexual abuse. When pressed by Reed to further describe how his allegation that Bishop Jakes violated, groomed him was predatory in nature, Youngblood made it clear that he was accusing Bishop Jakes of attempted sexual assault. When it comes to Bishop Jakes, when I was sharing this story the other day, I'm just running through the story, but I want to make sure people are very clear. I said that we were sitting at a dining room table and I looked at my watch and said, I've got to get up and get out of here because I've got to get my mother's car back to her. But what may have been misunderstood is that Bishop Jakes got up, came around the table, and positioned himself in the corner that I had to walk past. So he's basically trying to say that um, Bishop Jakes was blocking his exit from the room. Like he jumped up, say, I gotta go. And Bishop Jakes cornered himself in a position where um, Youngblood had to engage with him to get out of the room. So he felt like he was, I'm not going to say trapped, but he didn't feel free to leave, is what I think he's trying to convey here. So those are the allegations. Um, Youngblood then doubled down and described again the phone call he claimed he had with Bishop Jakes, just as he did in the October 28th interview. So he said the same thing in the follow up video. He says that the attorney says that Reed tried to bolster Youngblood's credibility, saying that Youngblood feels honest, and Reed stated that it doesn't feel that you're mad. You don't seem mad at all, and you don't feel like you're trying to get anybody back. You just telling the story. To which Youngblood nods and agrees throughout. So again, this is one of those allegations that I was like, is Bishop Jakes gonna try to name Larry Reed? That's gonna be interesting. Okay. Youngblood's accusations on Larry Reed Live about Bishop Jakes are false, and he knew it when he made them. From start to finish, Youngblood's tale of grooming and attempted sexual assault at the hands of Bishop Jakes is patently false. So, this goes on to say that the allegations are false. The context is unbelievable because Youngblood himself served years for molesting and assaulting minors. Um, he lied about his convictions, and so he's just a big liar, is basically what it's saying. Youngblood's October 28th and November 3rd appearances falsely targeting and attacking Bishop Jakes go viral. So I want you guys to see this. There are two paragraphs, okay, 32 and 33, talking about the accusations are false. Paragraph 32 says the allegations are false, and then paragraph 33 says they're false because look at Youngblood's criminal history. So what I don't see here is what actually happened. I don't see that. Bishop Jakes doesn't say, I never met Youngblood. He doesn't say, I was never at that church. I didn't make him read. Or I made him read, but it was because I saw something in him. I don't know that lady, that elder he's talking about, the house that we were at. He doesn't deny any of those things. And so that's what really stood out to me. He does not deny the context, the story itself. He's just denying that there were no, that he didn't make any sexual advances towards Youngblood. So I thought that that was very interesting. Um, by not by not denying the story, it feels like you're admitting that you guys have some kind of history, but you're saying it wasn't a sexual history. Is basically what you're saying. And so I would have liked to see what the story actually was. On this day, Bishop Jakes arrived in town. He stayed with this clergy member. He engaged Mr. Youngblood in a conversation. They had dinner. He was trying to mentor him. He didn't have a dad, and so Bishop Jakes talked to him about this and that. I mean, context. The context is what's missing from this story. Just saying they're false and then moving on to say, "Hey, this is a horrible person. He molested children." That's not going to cut it, in my opinion. So I thought that that was very interesting that the whole context of them meeting, that's all left out. So all we have is Mr. Youngblood's version, which if you're not refuting it, it sounds like you guys did meet in that house and you did talk and those things did happen. You're just saying that there were no sexual advances. Okay. So this next paragraph, next few is talking about the appearances going viral, which again is important in proving defamation. You have to prove that your reputation was actually harmed. And this goes on to say that the live ended up on Newsbreak, which has over 26 million monthly readers. So that's huge. Okay. And then again, it just continues with the attacking Youngblood. Youngblood retains an attorney with a history of filing frivolous lawsuits against prominent black celebrities and proceeds to try and extort millions from Bishop Jakes. So, whoever this attorney is, Youngblood's attorney, apparently he has tried to sue other black celebrities, and the attorney mentions Tiny and Ti. This is the same attorney who brought a complaint against them on behalf of a woman who said she was sexually assaulted by Tiny and Ti. And I remember that was in 2005. In 2024, a judge dismissed that lawsuit. So that was just last year. That was just last year that that lawsuit was dismissed. Just because the lawsuit was dismissed, however, does not mean that there was no merit to the woman's claims. I actually think in this case, it might have been it might have been too much time had passed. I don't remember the details, and so I don't want to speak on it. But there's all kind of reasons why a lawsuit is dismissed. It does not mean that the claim lacked merit. If the claim was that salacious and lacked merit, then T.I. and Tiny's attorney should brought a bar complaint against that attorney. Because as attorneys, we take an oath to be truthful with the court. We take an oath to present things that we believe that are true. And so if the lawsuit was just so salacious and so egregious and he's just going around attacking all these black celebrities, there should be a bar complaint. So I will check to see if I see one. Otherwise, it sounds like um, this attorney has a lane, like we all have a lane. And once you have a lane and people know that this is the type of work you do, then you get more of those type of clients. It doesn't mean that you're trying to just target black celebrities and extort money from them. And so I think that's a little misleading. But I think a judge will be able to read through that for sure. And then he's accusing Youngblood of extorting him. What happened, really? Well, I'm going to say what I believe happened, right? Because I wasn't there. But as an attorney, before you file a complaint, you send what's known as a demand letter. And so you say, hey, this is what happened to my client. You hurt my client in this way. This is how much money we're seeking. If you pay us this amount, we won't file suit. And so some attorneys on the other side, right, they want to classify that as extortion, but in some jurisdictions, you have to actually send a demand letter first before you can file a complaint because the court, the justice system overall, is not in favor of wasting judicial resources. So just imagine I have a problem with somebody. I never go to them and say, hey, you said, you were going to landscape my yard for $2,000. I paid you $2,000 and you didn't do anything. So imagine I never went to the landscaper. They never came back. I paid them the $2,000 and I just went to court and filed a complaint. Did you ask for your money? Did you talk to the owner? Did you email them? The owner may have sent, somebody on his team may have thought that somebody went and did it. And so our justice system favors communication between the parties. And so when someone sends a demand letter, it's disingenuous to say this is an extortion attempt. That's really an attempt to settle the claims efficiently and quietly sometimes, right? And so think about the case with Cassie and Diddy. I think her attorney sent a demand letter first. Diddy denied it, Diddy didn't pay. And then the video came out, and I think she even started her lawsuit, didn't she? Didn't she file the complaint? And then all of a sudden he paid. He could have, if he would have paid her initially. I'm not saying that I'm upset that the video came out, but he could have saved himself a lot of shame and embarrassment if he would have just paid her. That video probably would have never came out. And so, right, wrong, or otherwise, a demand letter is a vehicle that's used to settle a claim, and sometimes it can be beneficial. If somebody is guilty of wrongdoing, it would be in their best interest to settle it quickly without all this, right? Because these complaints are public record. Once you file it, it's part of public record, so we all can just go and read about what allegedly happened. So, but that's what this attorney is calling an extortion attempt. Is really the demand letter that was sent. Okay, Bishop Jakes brings this action to hold Youngblood accountable for deliberately spreading his manufactured story of sexual abuse. So this is really interesting. So Bishop Jakes played the offense instead of the defense. And so he saw the interview or heard about the interview, and he said, instead of waiting around for this man to sue me, I'm going to sue him first. And that's an interesting strategy. I've done that before with a client. So if you know somebody has a claim and they just kind of sitting on it, you don't necessarily want to deal with the uncertainty of that claim. Are you going to bring it today? Are they going to bring it tomorrow? Are they going to bring it next year? Are they going to wait till I'm, you know, retired and settled in my 401k and then be like, bam, So when you file a complaint first, you force the other person to bring up the allegations or to bring up whatever claim they have, because then at that point it has to be a counterclaim. There's a compulsory counterclaim that would have to be filed if it involves the same set of facts. And so by filing this complaint first, he is forcing Jakes is forcing Youngblood to bring his allegations forth as a counterclaim or whatever. He's going to have to bring it up in his defense. We're going to get to that actually next. But it's a way to force the person to come out, on your terms instead of waiting on their terms. And so Youngblood's attorney may not have been ready to bring the complaint yet. There's a lot of times I'll send a demand letter. We may work on a complaint for like another 6 or 7 months, researching, looking at the law, looking at other cases. And so by filing this lawsuit, Youngblood's attorney had to get on it right away. So you may be able to catch the other side off guard, with a strategy like this. Okay. Um, and so Jakes is talking about the millions of dollars that he's lost, reputational harm. Um, let's see. First claim for relief. This actually gets into the law. Libel per se against defendant Youngblood. Libel is spoken defamation. So again, we've gone over that already, but he has the actual statements that he says are lies. Um, okay, and then I'm gonna just kind of go through this because we already talked about most of it. Criminal convictions. Okay, as a direct and proximate result of the publication of his false and defamatory statements on October 28th and November 3rd, Jakes has suffered substantial injury to his reputation. So that's key. That's key to legally proving that defamation occurred. Okay, second claim for relief, civil conspiracy against all defendants. On information and belief, Youngblood and those acting in concert with him worked together to publish and broadcast the false claim that Bishop Jakes groomed him and sexually assaulted Youngblood on a podcast reaching over 100,000 persons. Um, to wit, co-conspirator number one falsely claimed in sum and substance during the podcast that Bishop Jakes had engaged in settlement discussions with Youngblood regarding his claims. So again, this is saying that co-conspirator number one, claimed that Bishop Jakes had engaged in settlement discussions with Youngblood. So who said that? It had to been Larry Reed, because it was only Larry Reed and Youngblood talking on the interview. Unless I missed something, somebody else hopped in and said something. So it's allegations like this that make me believe that they're talking about Larry Reed and that maybe they will name him at a later date. Even the fact that he says they work together to publish and broadcast a podcast. Whose podcast is it? So it sounds like they may be targeting Larry Reed. So that's a complaint. I think we've given that the time that is due. And now I want to share part of the response that Youngblood gave via his attorney. Okay. Um, this is actually not what I wanted to share, but just so you guys know, he filed a special response um, in response to the complaint, defamation complaint. And basically, Youngblood is saying that in Pennsylvania, there's an anti-SLAPP statute. That's SLAPP. And that statute um, makes it, it's not, under that law, it's not defamation if a plaintiff is bringing forth, or a person is bringing forth allegations that involve public interest and public good. And so Youngblood argues that because Bishop Jakes is a public figure, he's basically exposing him, and that exposition deals with the public good because he is a world renowned leader and motivational speaker and all these things. So that was a very crafty argument to say, you know what, you are all of these things. You are this world renowned bishop and author and speaker and all these things. So that's why I have to tell the world about what you did to me. I have to let them know that you are a dangerous person. And beyond that, Youngblood argues that he is exposing sexual abuse in the church, in the black church, which in his experience is very pervasive and doesn't get talked about. And so, him making these allegations against Bishop Jakes is part of a larger mission of exposing sexual abuse in the church. So, I thought it was a very crafty argument. Unfortunately, I do not have it pulled up right now, and I don't want to go through the trouble of pulling it up, especially because I only want to stay on for an hour. But maybe we'll do a part two, and we can delve into his response a little bit more. Also attached to his response, and here it is. It's called a special motion to dismiss pursuant to Pennsylvania's anti-SLAPP statute. So basically, a motion to dismiss is asking the court to dismiss the plaintiff's complaint. And so that's what he did. Um, but attached to the motion to dismiss, which was super helpful, several affidavits which support Mr. Youngblood's version of events. So we might have to go into a part two and get into these affidavits. But yes, he has affidavits, people who he knew back when he was 18 and 19, people that you know now, that says, hey, he's been telling this same story since he was 18 or 19. Now, you will notice that two of these people have a Youngblood last name, right? So that's his family. One of them is his brother. I think Richard is his brother. LaShawn, I'm not sure who that is, but that's his family member. So of course, family is seen to be biased. Um, but as someone in a family, I can't see me putting my name on a false affidavit and presenting it in court. I can't see it. Do people do it? Yes, they do. But he has several affidavits. He has one, two, three, four, five, six affidavits that supports his version of events. Him meaning Youngblood, and then he has several articles that he attached as exhibits. And part of what he talked about, part of what Youngblood talked about in that motion to dismiss was TD Jakes, his questionable past, and how he's been associated with Diddy and going to Diddy parties. And then he also mentioned the text thread that was exposed. I don't know who Bishop Jakes was texting. It might have been Manasseh, his former mentee, but there's a text thread that came out where Bishop Jakes, it looks like he's flirting. Oh, here it is. Exhibit 9, news article, text messages of Bishop T.D. Jakes flirting with a man surface. So I guess it wasn't Manasseh. So I don't know who the man was, but I did see those text messages, and Bishop Jakes he like sent a picture of himself and he said, I'm thinking about you. So Youngblood brings that up. Youngblood brings up his mentee, his former mentee, Manasseh. Manasseh made, I might be saying his name wrong, but he made certain allegations against Bishop Jakes as well. And I believe Manasseh, he may have gone on Larry Reed Live as well. And so, but he didn't, I don't recall that he mentioned Mr. Jake's name. So that's probably why he hasn't been hit with a defamation. But yeah, he's got several exhibits here to support his position. His attorney is Mr. Tyrone Blackburn. So Mr. Blackburn, he did that. We might have to do a part two and really delve into the response because I thought it was very crafty, very well written, and a great way to use Bishop Jake's words against his own words about himself against him. So I did want to share that with you guys. Um, and then lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about this case with Carmelo Anthony. It's a horrible case. It's bad on both sides. But I think we really need to think about when a case like this comes up and it's a tragedy on both sides, I think what precedent are we setting? What precedent are we setting? And so just let that be in the back of your mind as we talk about the case. And so I have the police report. It's very tiny, um, but I'll just have it up here. But the full police report is available on Twitter. You probably can get it somewhere else as well. But this version I have is from Twitter. And I guess the overarching question is this a credible self defense case? And the answer is no, it's not. It's not a credible self defense case. Let me go ahead and give you the spoiler. It's not. Um, Especially not in Texas. Come on now. Come on now. Y'all knew that. So, anyway, some of the facts that stood out to me why it's not a self defense case. So, according to the police report, again, I haven't been on the victim's social media. I haven't talked to witnesses. So, I'm going based on what's in the police report. Um, According to the police report, Mr. Anthony was under the tent. Allegedly, it was not his team's tents, but then I've seen other people say it was nobody's team's tents. The victim, it wasn't his team either. It was just a school tent or some, anybody could be under, allegedly. Um, and the victim asked Mr. Anthony to get up, that he didn't belong there, whatever he said. Mr. Anthony said, don't touch me. He said something like, um, don't touch me, don't touch me. And the victim touched him. And then he's like, don't punch me. I bet you won't punch me. And I'm not sure if the victim got a chance to punch him. But what stood out to me is that he is allegedly, Mr. Anthony is provoking the victim. I bet you won't do this. I bet you won't do that. That's not self defense. You don't get to go somewhere, even where you have a right to be. You don't get to go into a space and say, I dare you to touch me. I dare you to do this. I dare you to do that. Knowing that you have a weapon in your backpack. And then use the weapon and then claim self defense. You knowingly crafted that situation and then tried to claim self defense on the back end. It doesn't work like that. That's not self defense. Self defense is you're in an altercation with someone, that person pulls out a knife and you pull out a gun. We talking about life-threatening action met with further life-threatening action. That's self-defense. But provoking someone and saying, "Hey, do this, do that. I bet you won't do this, do that." That's not self-defense. Another reason why I'm not buying the self-defense is the presence of the knife in the bag in the first place. So if you were going to a track meet or going to observe a track meet, there would be no need for you to have a knife. And so the fact that you thought, let me put this knife in my bag, that indicates that there was some premeditation there, in my opinion. Because why else would you have the knife? It's not as if you guys were going fishing. If they were going fishing or going hunting and he had a knife or he had a gun, then that would make sense. But it does not make sense that you would bring a knife to a track meet unless you planned on using it. And you already had the thought that you wanted to use it in that way. And so that's another indication that this was premeditated. And if it's premeditated, it's not self defense. There are a few situations where danger is not necessarily imminent and you can use deadly force. You may be able to get away with it. One of them is battered wife syndrome. It has a proper term, but the colloquial term is battered wife syndrome. So a woman who is battered by her husband, she may not kill him in the moment where he's actually like beating her. She may wait until, I actually think I gave y'all the wrong. It's not called. Is it called battered wife syndrome? I don't want to give y'all the wrong name. But there is a caveat to self defense that involves battered wives. I don't think it's called battered wife syndrome now that I think about it. But the woman would not have the force to attack him in that moment, or maybe not even have the mind frame to attack him in that moment when her husband is beating her or her boyfriend is beating her. But she may wait until he's subdued. She may wait until he's asleep. She may wait until his back is turned. She may wait until, she's cooking his food and put some poison in it, whatever. The law normally says that the danger has to be imminent, but in the case of a battered woman, we will make a caveat, we will make an exception, because we understand that in that moment she was not able to defend herself, and that mentally she was not probably in a space to defend herself, but she waited until she had the opportunity. And so there's a caveat for self-defense when there's a battered woman. There's also a caveat for self-defense when in a stand your ground state, right? So in a stand your ground state, if someone comes into your home, you don't have to retreat. They don't have to be trying to kill you or coming at you with deadly force. Just by the fact of them being in your home, you can use deadly force to repel them. And we know that's how George Zimmerman, how he got off. That case was so infuriating. That incident with Trayvon Martin is one of the reasons why I went to law school. But I see that the mind that I had when I watched that trial pre law school is not the same mind that I have now. I did not understand then how a jury could find George Zimmerman not guilty. I understand now how they could, because I understand the law. Doesn't mean I agree. No, I don't agree. He stalked that young boy. He was a child. Then he was getting beat up, and he said, "Okay, now I got to take out my gun." I don't agree with that verdict, but I understand, because in the stand your ground state, George Zimmerman had the lawful right to be where he was. In his mind, this is an intruder. And Trayvon Martin was of such a size that he started to get the one up on George Zimmerman. And so in altercations, the aggressor can become the victim at some point, and then they may have the defense available to them. But this would not be a stand your ground type of case. Um, Number one, it's not clear that he had a lawful right to be there. We're just going to assume he did have a lawful right to be there. Um, it's a public space, so we're going to assume that he had the lawful right to be there. But again, provoking someone to attack you and then using deadly force against them, that's not going to be a caveat. That's not going to be a viable stand your ground defense. And so it's a shame. It's very sad. It's very sad on both sides. My understanding is that this young man, Carmelo, was teased. He was bullied by the victim and his brother. And that's horrible. That's horrible. It's not okay. But do we want to set the precedent as a society that when someone bullies you, it's okay to stab them in the chest? I know I don't. I don't want to set that precedent. I don't want to live in a society where we, meaning the adults, think it's okay for a child to stab another child in the chest because they're being bullied. It's just not, it's not okay. And I've heard people make arguments that the victim was a white supremacist. I don't care what he was. He was 17. I was a lot of things at 17 that I'm not now. And the average man lives to what, 70 something? So this young man would have had 60 more years to live to become something else besides a white supremacist, if that's what he was. And so that's just not a credible argument to me. I don't care what he posted on social media, how many guns he had in his hand and army fatigues. it does that does not justify this young man stabbing him in the chest, especially after provoking him to attack him. It's not justified. So no, it's not self-defense. No, it's not stand your ground. What do I think will happen? I don't think this is a good trial case. This is a case that is going to inflame passions on both sides. And by both sides, I mean for African Americans, for white Americans, passions are going to be inflamed on both sides. For on party lines, passions are going to be inflamed. You know, Republicans versus Democrats. Um, and so I think if they take this case to trial, it would be hard to pick a jury that would truly be impartial. And for that reason, I think that the case could go either way. In Texas, I would say I would more so think that they would convict versus not convict. Um, but I think it can go either way. It just depends on the jury. So I don't think it's a good trial case for either party. As a prosecutor, I wouldn't want to take this case to trial. As a defense attorney, I wouldn't want to take this case to trial. Um, Now there would have to be some crazy facts that would come out about the victim that would make me say, okay, this is self defense. So if some facts came out where the victim was texting Carmelo and said, next time I see you, it's on site. I'm going to have my gun. I got my boys with me. They got guns. They got knives. They got nooses. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. I mean, it would have to be some egregious things that came out about the victim that would make me feel like, okay, you know, even though he wasn't attacking him in this moment, Carmelo actually feared for his life. But I don't think he feared for his life in this moment. According to the police report, that is, I don't think that the way it's written in the police report, I don't believe that he feared for his life. I believe that he was tired of being bullied. I believe that they caught him on the wrong day. And I believe he packed that bag and he said, if they try me today, I got something for him. And that's what happened. And that is not self defense. So, like I said, it would have to be some pretty egregious things that come out that would make me change my mind on that. But this is not the type of president that we want to share, that we want to uphold as a society, as a nation. That it's okay to stab somebody that teases you. Think about the mass shooters. They go in schools. A lot of times they say that they were teased. They were teased. They were bullied. We never hear about the victim. We never hear, oh, this victim, you know, posted this on Facebook about him. This victim did this. We don't hear anything derogatory about the victims in those cases when it's school shootings. Even when the shooters are saying that they were teased. But in this case, we're hearing a lot of victim blaming, a lot about what he did or didn't do, said or didn't say, as if um, that would warrant Carmelo stabbing him in the heart with a knife. That's horrible. So anyway, I've been speaking over an hour, so we're gonna wrap this up. I'm going to think about it and pray about it, and maybe we'll do a part two and delve into the motion to dismiss that was filed by Youngblood. But thank you for tuning in. Until next time, have a great day.